Kids, go ahead and go on back. For those that are too young, like my daughter, and can't read what that means. Kids, go ahead and go on back. And what a wonderful service we've had so far, amen? So much going on. I'm thankful for all that we have. Our title of our lesson today is We Are Better Together. And I think that's fitting for everything that we've seen so far in our service. We are better together. And I'm thankful for what we are getting ready to uncover. If you have your Bibles, go to Ecclesiastes chapter 4. And we're going to be in Ecclesiastes for just this sermon. This is not a series yet. We're going to do this one and then one more, then we'll break into a series. But in Ecclesiastes chapter 4, we're going to uncover some truths of what it means to be with others and how important it is. We're not called to live our lives alone, but we're called to live our lives in a family setting in unison with people around us that can help us. And Thanksgiving is that time we get to talk about family. Amen. We're getting ready in just a couple days. We're going to have all of our family come together from Sarah's side, and then we'll end up after that meal go to my Mimo's house. We'll have our family with her and all of that side of the family, and just exciting times to have family come together. And we talk, we laugh, we joke. But the best thing about family is that you have people that you can count on, that you can turn to, that will always be there. And that's what the family is supposed to be. Now, sad to say, there are some in our world that do not have that experience with their physical family. They don't have that. And if that's you today, and maybe your physical family, you say, well, I really can't count on those people. I can promise you this. If you're a part of this church family, if you look around this room, you can count on these people. They'll be there for you. And so family is a wonderful thing that we have. And it's that idea that whenever things go on in our life, we're not going it alone. We have others around us. Ecclesiastes 4 is going to tell us that. So let's just dive right into Scripture. We're going to start at verse 7, and we're going to read all the way down to verses 12. But starting at verse 7, it says this again. Again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. This is kind of a reoccurring thing in Ecclesiastes. There's a lot of meaninglessness, a lot of hopelessness, but really there's a point to all of what our writer is saying. But here he says, again, I saw something meaningless under the sun. There was a man all alone. How horrible. A man all alone. Then he goes on to say why he was alone. He said, he neither had son nor brother. There was no end to his toil. So he continued to work day in and day out. But he worked because he wanted to work. We get to see the next line says, yet his eyes were not content with his wealth. He wanted more and more and more. And then he goes on to say this. For whom am I toiling? He gets to the point to say, I've got so much stuff, but what am I doing it for? Who am I toiling, he asks, and why am I depriving myself of enjoyment? Because I'm alone. Who am I going to give this to? This too is meaningless, a miserable business. Now, we can focus a lot on just these passages of Scripture, but this isn't where our focus is going to be. Our focus is going to be on 9 through 12. But looking at this, we can gain much from it. But I'm going to give you the gist of what it's saying here. A life lived for the self, a life lived for just us or self-gain, and not concerned with other people, not concerned with family, friends, people around us, neighbor, brother or sister, is a life that is meaningless. Meaningless. Then he goes down to verse 9 to start shedding light on what it means to be together and what good there is from it. So we have this story of what it means to be meaningless in a life of alone, and then he goes on to verse 9 to start giving us our text to today. So verse 9, he says this, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. Okay, I'm going to go pretty quick with our sermon this morning because it's a quick text, but there's so much to it. Our first point that I want us to get out of our sermon together, 2 are better than 1, is this. Together we achieve more. Together we achieve more than we ever could by ourselves. Now this is a common principle, right, that we all understand. Today we're getting ready, we're going to go cut some wood. We're going to go do an active service within our church family. We're going to go cut some wood. And everybody that comes, I promise you, will be blessed from this experience and getting to do this. But I promise, if I go by myself and I cut wood and I can do as much as I want, I can really put forth an effort and do all that I can, I'm probably going to get in the 2 to 3 hours we'll be cutting, I might get maybe 2 ricks of wood if I'm really huffing, because also I'm out of shape. But maybe I could get 2 ricks of wood. Maybe. But if a bunch of us show up and we do it together, we can double, triple, maybe even quadruple what I could do by myself. Now that same principle then carries on to every aspect of our life. Today we have the baby dedication. Now, as parents going at it alone, you can raise your children. And we can. We can raise our kids and do the very best that we can. But even as parents, sometimes we stumble, right? Sometimes we fall. How great is it if you're not the only ones pouring into your kids? And I'll be honest with you, you're not, right? They go to school, they have TV, they got all these other things pouring into their kids. How is it that you're going to combat what they're saying? If you have a family around you, a godly family, a Christian family, and a church family around you, how much more are you going to be able to do with your children? How much more are you going to be able to teach them and raise them right? Together we can achieve more. That is why I believe church is so important. It's important to be here, not just to say, well, I put in my time at church, but to truly be a part of this family because we grow together and we achieve more together. The same is true with the kingdom of God. By myself, I can go out and I can be the light that I'm called to be. Jesus says that all of us here are to be the light and salt of the world. Every one of us are called to do that. The Great Commission that was sent down to go and make disciples of all nations is not a Great Commission to just the church, but to individuals it was given. And I can go and try and do the best that I can. And I might achieve something. But if we come collectively and do it together, how much more are we going to do? How much greater is it going to be? I might get burned out by myself. But if you're there with me carrying some of that load, we're going to continue on. We're going to keep it going. Together, we achieve more. How often do we try to do things by ourselves? I want you to be honest with me here today. How often, whenever you have something go on in your life, whether it's a bad thing, maybe a sickness or something like that, you don't tell anybody. And you try to just go, well, I don't want to put my burdens on somebody else. It's not that big of a deal, and you try to go through it yourself. You're not really following the principle here. We're supposed to be together. We're supposed to be leaning on one another. And if you're trying to go it alone, you're not going to get as much done. You're going to get burned out. You're going to get tired, depressed, discouraged. But if we're together, we achieve more. We impact change greater if we're together. But then he goes on to number 10. And he says, if either one of them falls down, one can help the other up. But pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. So number 1 was together we achieve more. Number 2 is together we can persevere. We can persevere together. I want you to think about what he's saying here. If someone falls down. Now immediately we just put it in picture of our mind. I'm going and I stumble and I fall. Someone can reach their hand down and pick me up. But I want us to take this even further. Every one of us here today, we're not perfect. We do mess up. We do stumble. We do fall. How great it is to know that when we do stumble and fall, there's someone there to bring us back to the right track. Maybe sometimes we fall away from church. Maybe sometimes we fall away from the teaching of God. Maybe sometimes we start living in our flesh. How great it is to know there's someone that truly cares for you to say, hey, I think you need to come back. I've seen you've been missing something. I've seen you've been kind of acting different. Your words are different. What's going on in your life? This is the mark of a true friend. See, as a family, whenever someone's starting to go down a bad path, we're quick to tell people about it as a family, right? If you see someone that's getting ready to make a huge mistake, maybe with someone they're dating or something like that, we're quick to say, why are you doing that? Why are you dating this person? The same principle ought to be true when we see one of our own starting to walk away from the faith. We say, where are you going? What are you searching for? What are you trying to do? Because you're going to lose it all, right? I'm going to pick on my wife for just a moment. And I didn't tell her I was going to do this. But whenever she was in high school, I guess she was dating somebody that wasn't really a very good person. Because she hasn't met me yet, you know. And so she was dating somebody that wasn't really all that good of a person. And her dad, he was, why do you do it? And he said, if you date losers, you're going to end up marrying a loser. It's a good principle, right? She did well, let me tell you. It's a good principle, right? No, if you date losers, you're going to end up marrying a loser. Well, she ended up taking that to heart. And eventually, she quit dating those losers. She found a good guy. Yeah? Anyway, just put that in perspective. But together we can persevere. Sometimes we need to have that encouragement to say, you're messing up. Now here's where I want us to get kind of honest with ourselves. How sad is it, and this talks about pity anyone who falls and has no one to come to help them. How sad is it if we have within our lives, within our family, within our church, how sad is it if we don't have anybody that is willing to look at us when we are stumbling, to look at us when we're starting to walk away, and instead of lovingly say, hey, you're messing up, they let you go. How sad is that? Because that's not really love, is it? That's not really caring for one another, is it? Because we're talking about eternal aspects of our life. A true friend, a true family member, and someone that truly cares for your soul and truly cares for your heart is somebody that will look into the situation and lovingly say, hey, I think you need to come back. I think you're messing up. Have hard conversations that we need to hear. Now, to be clear, this is not someone that is constantly looking into your life to find fault. Because that's just a negative person, and we don't need that in our lives. You don't need negativity to constantly drag you down. I'm not saying go out and find the most negative person you can find that's going to always rip your life to pieces. Don't do that. I'm talking about finding a true friend that out of a loving friendship will tell you when you're doing good and will tell you when you're messing up. That's a good friend. That's a friend that is going to keep you on the right track. That's what we all need. If we have that type of a friend, we're going to persevere and we're going to make it. If we don't have that type of friend, we're going to fall. And maybe we just keep falling. Maybe we just keep stumbling. It's important that we have it. I want you to think right now in your life. Just take a moment. And I want you to think in your life. Do you have that type of friend right now? Just take a moment and think. Do you have that type of friend that if you were to start walking away, they would notice and they would care? If you don't have that friend, seek someone out. It's a promise we need it. Every one of us. The next question is, are you that type of friend? When someone you know starts to stumble and walk away, do you go and do you care? Are you that friend? Verse 11, he says, also, if two lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? Number 3, together we bring comfort to life. I want you to think about what he's saying here in these moments. He's talking about dire situations, right? We've all seen those movies. I'm thinking immediately right now with Without a Paddle. But we've all seen those movies, right? Where there's somebody and you know, it's really cold and stuff like that. And they're trying to, well, how are we going to survive? And so they look at each other. Oh, we got to cuddle. You know, I don't want to do that. You know, we're talking about the dire situation, the last resort type thing. What this is saying, whenever you have made it to the very end of your rope, whenever you don't feel like you can carry on, whenever you don't feel like you can move, and many of you have been there, maybe with loss of a loved one, maybe with battles of sickness and things that have happened in your life, maybe with just frustrations and fears that have happened in your life, and you've been to that point where you just feel like, I don't know if I can carry on. Maybe by yourself you can, but together we can bring comfort back into this life. Because how difficult is it when you lose a loved one to find that kind of comfort again? To find that type of peace and stuff. How difficult is it when you hear horrible news to carry on in the comfort of life? Together we can have that. Together we can bring comfort to one another and carry on. Now this is only true if we have a godly friend, and that's where he goes with number 4. Number 4, verse 12, he says, though one may be overpowered, 2 can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Before I get to the overpowered and defending themselves, I want us to look at that. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. We easily bring this into the concept of marriage. A lot of times at a wedding, you'll hear that verse and you'll see it applied, and maybe sometimes the unity aspect of things. Sometimes they have the braided cross and stuff like that they use. And looking at this whole passage here, he's always been talking about 2 people, right? If you just have one other person that will help you out, you're going to be well, right? You're going to make it. But here he says a 3-cord strand is not quickly broken. We might easily have expected him to say 2. So who's the 3rd cord? Why does he say 3? Where does that 3rd cord come from? It's easily answered when we understand what he means. We need to have friends. But if we don't have friends that are united with us in a relationship with God, if God is not a part of that friendship, if God is not a part of it, then we don't have anything. We need to seek out godly friends, godly family, godly people that unite together with us for the common purpose. If you stumble and fall, how can anybody who is not of God help you along and bring you back up? If you experience horrible loss and horrible news, how can anybody other than God bring you that kind of comfort? Because it says that God will give us a peace that surpasses all understanding. Sometimes that comes through friends. Sometimes that comes through family. But we have to have that relationship. I encourage you to seek out relationships with godly people right here at this church. Let's be a family. Let's care for one another like this. This type of a family. Then he goes on to make that claim right before this, that one can be overpowered. One can be taken down. We're looking at kind of that weak link in the line. If you're by yourself, how easy is it to jump on you? But if you have others with you, you can defend yourselves. Looking at this idea, I want to bring up a picture on our screen. Brother Emmett, would you bring up that buffalo that's there? That is a Cape buffalo. These are massive animals. They're beefy. They're mean too. I'm going to give you some facts about the Cape buffalo real quick, and this is in closing. Some facts here. Buffalo are reported to kill more hunters in Africa than any other animal. They are known to ambush the hunters that have wounded or injured them. They're looking out for them, right? They're kind of smart. They're mean. Then it says the adage, an elephant never forgets, would be matched by a buffalo never forgives. They have been known to attack people that harmed them even years after the event. How crazy, right? And then it goes on to say, a buffalo has 4 times the strength of an ox. According to research by Dr. John Condi, he tested their pulling strength. This explains why they are able to tip a motor car. In Africa, if you're driving along in those cars, one of the fears they have is a herd of buffalo like this will come up and they'll tip your car. They have the strength to do it. And then one of the last ones is this. Cape buffalo are known to kill lions and can seek out lion cubs. And they call this preventive punishment. They go out and find them. They're massive animals. They're big animals, right? And they are herd animals. They are a family group. If you ever look at the Animal Planet or anything like that and you see a herd of Cape buffalo, you never see them just by themselves. They're always together. They're always a group together. And I heard a sermon one time and he brought up a story of the Cape buffalo. And ever since I heard this story, I look at all family units like this, like family herds and stuff like that. Anytime I watch Animal Planet, I'm seeking for this type of a story. And it happens all the time. It happens very often. But this is the story he told me. He sat down and he was watching National Geographic one day and they were doing a documentary. And it was over hunters, like lions and things like that. And they were going after Cape buffalo. And the commentator kept saying the Cape buffalo, as a family unit, they have the strength to defend or defend off any type of attack. They have the strength to do it. But what was funny, or not really funny, but just neat to watch in this video, is show that the lions, they went after the small little weak link that was in this family. And it was just a little calf that was kind of off by itself away from its mom. And in fact, I'm going to guess the mom must have died because the mom was never in the picture at all, and you would always see the mom coming to the rescue, right? Well, then it shows the family, and it shows 2 big bulls, 2 big bull Cape buffalo that are right there grazing, really close to where the calf was. And he said, as he watched, he was noticing as the lions and stuff got closer, the bulls, they just kept grazing, never even raised their head. To the point that when the lions attacked and pounced on them, the bulls still never raised their head. They ended up killing the little calf, and the bulls just kept grazing as if nothing was going on. Man, we could almost do a Father's Day sermon about this, but we're going to leave this in this aspect. But grazing as if nothing was going on. And so why bring up the Cape buffalo? Here's why. Even sometimes in the middle of family, even sometimes in the middle of church family, we can get complacent with where we are and what we are doing and kind of forget what's going on the outskirts of things. Kind of forget what's happening out around us. And there might be people that are really struggling. There might be people that are really hurting. But we're kind of focused on our own grazing. We're kind of focused on our own area. As a family unit, together we have protection. But that only happens if we're seeking out others. We're seeking out those who are hurting. See right here, this Cape buffalo, if they would have just raised their heads and come over and just charged these lions, this calf would have been saved. The Bible tells us that the devil is like a roaring lion seeking whom he may devour. He is looking for people right now to take them down. And I promise you, he's looking for people in the church right now to take them down. Because if he can take down someone in the church, he's done a huge thing to the body of Christ. As the church, we need to be focused not just on what we are doing, but look around to those who are hurting. Look around to those who might be in need of being rescued. Together we have protection if our eyes are open. They have to be open. Today, if you are looking at this situation And you might feel, you know what, I don't know if I have that type of a friend that I want. Today, if you're in this situation and you say, you know, I'm kind of going through a lot right now. I'm kind of one of those that's on the outside. I'm hurting. I just need to be lifted up. I'm going to ask you, if you would, here in just a moment, to come forward and pray at the altar. And I'm going to ask you, to, in a sense, to do it publicly, so that we as a church know who can pray for, who needs help, and we'll be there for each other, care for each other, as a family does. Today, if you're here and you say, you know what, I kind of think I've been focused on my own self, I haven't really been looking outside. I've been grazing, but I haven't really had my eyes open and my head up. Let today be the day that we realize the Christian walk is about togetherness. And we need to open our eyes to what everyone else is going through as well. Keep that together. Focus on what God would have us to do. Let me pray over this. Heavenly Father, God, I thank you for our church. Lord, I pray right now as we look into this passage of Scripture and we uncover what it's talking about and what it says. God, I pray that we'll see that we need other people. We can't go it alone. But God, we need to be open to having people love on us. We need to be open to having people correct us. We need to be open, God, to having true friendships. Lord, I pray that if some are here who are hurting, God, I pray that you would just give them the strength to carry on. And God, help us as a church to take note and to pray and to care and to do all that we can to help each other. And God, don't let Satan have any one of our family. I pray that you just throw out whatever work he's trying to do, whatever stumbling blocks he puts up. And God, I pray that you just throw him away. And Lord, help us to fight him off and focus on you. We love you, God. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. With every head bowed and every head closed.